My name is Eva Eberts. I'm currently teaching grade 7-8 French immersion at École Harlick in Saskatchewan and Regina. And I did this work as my part of my master's, my second master's in education and the admin stream at Brandon University. And the work that came out, it was based on a lot of the work I did in my position as curriculum consultant in the Brandon School Division. How teacher leadership evolves seems to be pretty dependent on the level of implementation of a collaborative team framework and leadership support for collaborative work for teachers and giving those opportunities for teacher leaders to come forward. When there is an expectation of collaboration, it kind of reinforces the professional learning community and encourages those who are already naturally collaborators to step up into some of those leadership roles, share their expertise, and make the most of the capacity building. When you have that framework, it also offers opportunities and pushes those people who might be a little bit more reluctant to have a lot to offer as teacher leaders, but not be quite as self-motivated, not as quick to step into leadership roles, but still have a lot to offer. And that hesitancy can come from just personality traits, perhaps even a little bit of suspicion on the part of the teachers. We get that initiative fatigue where, oh, here's another thing coming down the pipe. We're going to put a whole bunch of work into it for a couple of years and it's going to be abandoned. So I think the importance of having that framework and that support, not just at the teacher team level, but the school level, but also the divisional level, it really helps maintain that level of common purpose and common understanding so that they know that if they step up and they put themselves out there and put the work into being a teacher leader, that it's going to go somewhere. It's not just something that's going to be abandoned before we even see the benefits of it. Once teachers have an understanding that there's that framework in place, that support at the school level, at the divisional level, you can see the opportunities there for teachers to step forward and really use their expertise, because so much of the expertise we have in our school divisions is already in the classrooms. We don't have to bring it in from elsewhere. Rather than paying a lot of money for people from outside organizations or agencies to come in and educate our teachers, we can build on what we already have. What I've observed and experienced in my work with teacher teams, having that systemic, divisional, institutional commitment to supporting teacher leaders and supporting a framework of teachers working in teams and giving those opportunities for some teachers in those teams to step up and take advantage of those capacity building opportunities, they tend to be the more successful ones. For example, when I came from the Brandon School Division, there was a high expectation. Collaboration is not an option. There was an expectation of having different levels of teacher teams, both at the divisional level, at the school level, and at the classroom level with the grade group teams. And the expectation was that everyone participates, everyone contributes, everyone works towards a common goal and a common instructional challenge that they're focusing on. And that was really, really important in maintaining the momentum, maintaining the focus, not going off on tangents. One of the things that I found with that structure is that even with the teams that I work with, when we first started, and this was all new to the teachers and the teams, I had them develop individual SMART goals. So that's a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals, and also team SMART goals. And it was kind of interesting to see how when they co-constructed the team goal was this focus right here, and yet their individual goals were right across the board in terms of where they focused. But the more we worked together, the more their personal goals aligned with the team goal. I think having that framework, that structure, that consistent expectation, that divisional support, not just from school leaders, but also from senior admin and also the team of specialists that we had, was really important in supporting and making the most efficient implementation and getting the teachers to see the value in the work that they were doing in their collaborative teams. Where I'm working right now, they take a much less formal approach. And I have had conversations where people will give feedback and say, oh, this whole idea of teams and PLCs, it doesn't work. Well, it can work. We just have to see how it can work. And so I'm very fortunate to have had the opportunity to see how it can be very effective and now try to help implement some of those things that I've learned from my previous division into the current division that I'm working in right now. From what I found and again observed was that the most effective practices is normalizing a lot of the conversations, making collaboration something that we just do. And in a lot of cases, there are lots of teachers that already do that, especially in early years. And somehow when you get into middle years, you get a lot more of the isolation, teachers working in silos. In high school, it's not uncommon for teachers to basically do their own thing and have very few opportunities to collaborate with others. So I think the important thing is to make sure that we really normalize that collaboration. And when we do that, as coaches, administrators, really be mindful to create that safe space for teachers to be able to be vulnerable comfortably. If we are looking at student achievement data, then I have to be able to be comfortable and say, oh, there's something that I'm seeing here. It might be my students, might be someone else's students, but just be able to have that open mindset to comfortably say, what's going on here? Be objective about it and be less judgmental. So be very empathetic, curious, looking for the causes, the sources of what's going on, rather than judging, whether it's judging myself off as like, oh, I'm not doing well because my students aren't doing well, or judging someone else. So I think we really need to make sure that we are very open, very honest, very objective, because we also don't want to be in a situation where teachers are so self-conscious of their students' achievement that it's not accurately reported because they're afraid to show that their students aren't doing well. So we want to make sure that you have those open conversations, you have that trust, that openness, that safe environment where you can have those discussions and have the connections within your school community, within your teacher teams, where if you are struggling with something as either a new teacher, even an experienced teacher, and you realize there's someone else on your team that has expertise or knowledge in that particular area, you just know that you can go to them and reach them out. One of the things that I try to do as a coach is I try to encourage teachers to ask that question at their exit slips. How can I as coach help you, or how can the team help you? It was interesting to see how initially a lot of teachers struggled with just that question, where we're so used to trying to solve problems ourselves, we forget that, hey, we can reach out to others that can help us through these problems and challenges. We as teacher leaders need to model being mindful and reflective of our choices and our actions and the impacts of those choices and actions. If we model that being more empathetic and less judgmental of each other and ourselves, then that can foster that inclusive, equitable learning environment where we seek to understand before we judge. I think if we really focus on creating that open, safe learning environment, it can help normalize those conversations that I've been talking about, and where we not just celebrate the differences that we have in our building, embrace them as something that strengthens and broadens our perspectives. I think one of the things we need to keep in mind is, as teachers, we're often really good at modeling that with our students, but we also need to remember that we have to model that with our staff and the people that we collaborate with. The adults in our building is just as diverse as the differences that we have among our student population. So we need to be mindful that when we are working with colleagues in the building, and we need to make sure that we're very mindful of our reactions and how we communicate, how we collaborate, because whether we realize it or not, a lot of times the students are watching us, and so they pick up on what we're modeling. So it's very important to create that so that we have a safe learning environment, not just for our students, but also for our staff. With some of the findings that I came across, one of the things that I would like to see reflected in policy, especially in practice, is investing in that common sense of purpose. So when I was in the Brandon School Division, there was a lot of time and effort spent in developing that common purpose, common understanding of what we were doing, and even some of the terms that we were using, just to make sure that any misconceptions that were left over from that initiative overload, it was very precise in making sure that we had that common sense of understanding and common purpose. So there was lots of work on the divisional level and also within the schools on developing common goals, using norms, of course, so that you have that understanding that if we do come to an impasse where it comes to our next steps, then how are we going to resolve that? We have to agree on how we're going to manage any changes. So we actually have true collaboration and consensus, and not just people compromising. And I think that really, really impacts your level of buy-in and your level of adoption of new initiatives or goals. It's sort of like the sustainability of the actions that you need to achieve the goals that you set out. If you have that common understanding and common purpose across different levels of educators across a division, then you also have that constant reinforcement, and your work is much more resilient to interruptions, whether it's, pandemic, whether it's lots of staff turnover. Then you have that ability to make sure your work continues, even though you might have things that you don't plan to occur to your team or to your work environment. The other thing I would like to see is the consistent implementation of the team framework. Again, that goes along with that maintaining that consistency of the process. If you don't have that consistency of expectation of the process and the understanding of, okay, this is what a teacher team does, this is what the school leadership team does, which is a collection of teachers from across the building that are like the sounding board for school leadership decisions. And then you've got the divisional leadership team. If you're not clear on what the roles of each one are, then you can have a lot of confusion as to who is responsible for what. And when you have that consistent implementation of the framework, the consistent expectations as to what each team is responsible for, that communication between each of the teams so that they inform them, then you've got lots of information flowing between the different levels of team to the divisional leadership team. So when they are making decisions, then they know already that it's the right decision for their school. So you don't have a case where, someone at a higher level makes a decision and then it comes back to the classroom and then you realize, okay, this is not going to work. So it's really important in that regard. I would love to see that, because then that would save a lot of time and frustration for educators at all levels. And the last thing that I think I would really love to see, based on Tchaikovsky, Walker, and Sudobo's model, 4P models: purpose, presence, passion, and play. So purpose, so you have your common understanding; presence, so it's not just physical presence, but also being engaged in what the work that you're doing; passion, so that's your openness to adopting new ideas and continuing your learning. And the fourth one is play. With play, it really touches into wellness. As teachers, we use play-based learning all the time. When we come under pressure, we get a lot of work on our plates. Play is often the thing that falls to the wayside. We focus on our to-do list. We focus on what our objectives are. Okay, what directive do we have from up above? What do we have to accomplish? What documents do we have to produce? And we forget the most important part of what we love about teaching. It's the enjoyment of learning, exercising our creativity, exercising our problem-solving skills, and really having fun with what we're doing and getting to that appreciation of the internal good. So what value we ourselves get out of the work that we're doing. And that is correlated completely with teacher wellness. And so if oftentimes with teacher wellness, it's an extra day or thing or one-time event that kind of is plugged in there once we see that our teachers are getting stressed. But if we incorporate that as teacher leaders into the work that we do every day and make sure that we are mindful to remember that as teachers, as leaders, we can work hard and we can still enjoy the work that we do and make it fun and make it engaging. And I think that's true not just of teaching within the classroom, but even adult education. What are the most memorable workshops that we've been to? It's ones that we move around, we do activities, we do hands-on things, we have actual engaging discussions. I think that's what I would like to see incorporated more in daily practice as well as policy wherever possible. As teachers, many of us tend to be quite selfless. So we put the needs of our students ahead of us. We put the demands of our job ahead of our own wellness oftentimes. And again, I think there that the importance is having that framework of that support, institutional support for teacher leaderships, formalizing some of those roles. And if you look at some of the work in other parts of the book, in chapter 4 in particular, where they talk about informal teacher leaders and their roles and impact. Teacher leadership is going to happen anyways. Oftentimes it'll happen informally by people who are self-motivated and just naturally more caring, nurturing. They'll step in as a mentor type of thing, whether it's an actually recognized position or not. But I think when you have a system of teams, you have lots of opportunities where teachers can take a leadership role in a team. They can be part of a school leadership team. They can be part of a divisional team that's developing, a tool for all teachers to use. Then it really broadens your ability to tap into all of the potential leadership talent you have within your school community. And sometimes it takes that shoulder tap to really get someone involved. So once you take on those roles, when it is a formalized role, when you are given time to meet together as a team, then that shows at the institutional level that they acknowledge the importance of the work that you're doing. It shows that there is appreciation for those who are willing to step up and contribute to something that furthers the knowledge base of the entire division. And I think that's really important because that kind of helps us balance our time. Because honestly, with many teachers, if they have that natural leadership inclination, they will do it on their own time, all the time. They will give up their own preps to help mentor another teacher in class. And it can easily lead to burnout. You find that giving too much of yourself and spreading yourself too thin. And it's really interesting to see how a little bit of appreciation and recognition can go a long way in helping everyone maintain that level of contribution to their school and to their school community. The CATE conference was probably the most amazing conference experience I've ever had. My background previously was physical sciences, where it's very structured, very black and white. You go to a conference, you present. Depending on the nature of your topic, you can be heavily criticized, you can be well received. With the CATE conference, and I think the working conference model I found inordinately supportive and inspiring, because you had students, you had grad students, professors, you had experts in the field. When you're sitting in a room with an author whose work you've referenced several times already, it's kind of awe-inspiring when you're suddenly all there at the table and you all have your proposals, your work at different stages where everyone's at, and everyone is just giving free feedback on how you can improve your work. And then I was actually surprised, me being a student relatively, I've done a lot of reading and education. I haven't done a lot of research prior to this. So I was amazed at how much even I myself was able to contribute to someone else's work. And I think, again, that goes into that idea of we have a lot more expertise than we give ourselves credit for. And models like the working conference is an amazing opportunity to draw on the experience experience of people in several different fields from different institutions. In our first working group, we had people from all across the country that were coming to share their work. And the writing process itself was also amazing because after the conference itself, we had opportunities to meet with the same group of people that we met with in person, and then new people. And then you always had very constructive feedback throughout the writing process. So it took a lot of the anxiety and apprehension about, presenting at a conference and writing a published work as you're waiting for the wrath of the peer review. But it was a lovely experience. As a grad student, it certainly inspired me to want to keep up with my research for sure, and kind of continue on and continue participating in the upcoming CATE working conferences.